Hey, Cochise County, and welcome to the Michael Zehr Show. Today's date is Friday, April 7th, 2023, and we're coming to you live from the Rising Eagle Studios here at the Warrior Healing Center in Sierra Vista, Arizona, in the great county of Cochise, in the great state of Arizona, and the best nation in the world, the United States of America. Yes, I'm full of it today. I'm in a good mood. I'm in a great mood, as a matter of fact. So,
great country to be in.
James is our special interview today. Is James Thomas?
Thomas, yes.
Okay, and I want to make sure I got it right because Beverly, who helps up at the front desk, scheduled this, and so thank you, Beverly, for doing that. We appreciate that. And not only did she help me get you on the schedule, she got me guests for the next 2 weeks. So
good.
Again, Beverly, I thank you for that. If you are a veteran and you have not shared your story and you'd like to come on camera here and tell your story and share it with Cochise County and everybody, we'd love to have you down here. All you have to do is reach out to me via email. I'm on Facebook, and we will get you down here and get you scheduled for the interview. So hope that you'll be able to come down and do that someday. So James, Mr. Thomas, thank you so much for coming down this morning and joining us here at the Warrior Healing Center.
Good to be here with you, Mike.
Thank you, sir. So my first question is, where's home, and where were you born and raised? And
my hometown is in a city called Rome, state of Georgia, Rome, Georgia.
Rome, Georgia. Okay.
That's where I was born at in 1950.
Okay.
I was born, at that time they had midwives, so I was born at home at
Oh, wow.
535 East 14th Street.
Very cool.
I just happened to be there the last 2 weeks. I just happened to go back there and visit my community, and they built a highway through there, so it's no longer the house that used to be there. It'd be about 80 or 90 years old anyway. But they built a highway through there, eminent domain, and they moved all the houses. The eminent domain, they moved all the houses that was in that area. I remember putting the houses on these trail thing or whatever they were, jacking them up, putting them on wheels, and they moved them to another spot. So
wow.
Our house, yeah. So I remember that, and that was in, I guess, the 50s.
And did you live in Rome your whole childhood and high school and all that?
I lived in Rome. I had my elementary school was Mary T. Banks. My middle school was Anna K. Davy. And during that time, back in the 60s, there was a high school called Maine High School. It was the only colored school that was in that part of Georgia. And it was all black school because it was before the schools got integrated. So
before segregation?
So I went to the 11th grade, and in 12th grade, that's when they come out with the integration of the schools. So they moved me back to East Rome High School. So we integrated the school. So I graduated at East Rome High School.
What was that like for you when you went from a school that was segregated, and then you're all in? Had to be a different experience for you, right?
It was totally a different experience because of all of the things that was happening during that time with people of color.
Right.
But I've been there, like I said, been to all black schools, all my high school years, all my years of education, and then get to the 12th grade and then have to graduate and be integrated. I didn't have any problem with it because I was mainly a loner. I accepted the fact that this is what it was, so I just adjusted to it. It wasn't nothing new to me being exposed to people that were white because I had intermingled with them even as a child. So I didn't have no problem doing it.
It never should have been that way from the get-go.
Exactly.
Right?
You're right. Exactly. Yeah. But I did it, and I got through it. So
that's why I don't think we should be I don't think that we should hide or erase our history, but we should definitely be ashamed of maybe some of the things that we did.
Exactly.
And keep that history and learn from it so that we don't repeat that past mistakes again.
That's correct.
So
after I graduated out of high school, they had a thing. I don't hate to say it, but there was a thing called the draft.
The draft.
I didn't understand about the draft.
I was going to ask you what inspired you to join the military. You weren't inspired. You were drafted.
Well, I either had three choices.
Okay.
I either had to be a draft dodger and go to Canada, go to jail, or go in the military. Well, I didn't know how to get to Canada, and I definitely didn't want to go to jail, so here I am. So I got drafted for Vietnam. My induction into the service was at Fort Campbell, Kentucky,
Okay.
August 1970.
August of 1970.
1970 is when I got into the military. Got drafted, went to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, 101st Airborne.
Wow. So you had basic training and AIT both there then?
I had the basic training at Fort Campbell. The advanced infantry training was at Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Oh, Fort Polk. Okay.
So they
All
sent
right.
me to Fort Polk. Then they sent me to Fort Knox, Kentucky to drive armored personnel carriers training. And then from there, then they sent me to Vietnam.
And what year did you go over in Vietnam?
71.
In 1971?
And I went in as, I called myself a tunnel rat. Well, not a tunnel rat, but I called myself a jungle rat. Because at that time, the 101st Airborne was changing over to Air Mobile. And that's when they would fly us to mountains and tell us to sweep the mountains. And after we swept the mountains, we didn't find any contact. We didn't find any VC. So basically, I lived in the jungle. I call myself a jungle rat. Lived in the jungle, slept in the jungle. They would change our clothes once. I think supply days was about every 5 days. They would fly a helicopter out. We changed clothes. I remember some incidents to where when the helicopter would come in, we'd rush out to the helicopter, and whatever clothing you found, that's what you put on. You didn't have time to see if it fit and was it big enough, was it small enough. You just grabbed it, and that's how we did. And we have our weeks of ration that we carry with us, which was called C rations.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you feel that the military prepared you really well for Vietnam when you got there?
I really don't. I don't really think they prepared me as much as me being a survivor, because I was going into basically uncharted territory. I have never had a weapon in my hand until I got in military and got the M16, and
right.
So all this training, this was all new to me, because I'm raw. I'm just right out of high school.
Well, and then like for example, the terrain had to be a lot different and everything. Going from, thank you, Kathy. Going from Georgia,
yes,
to Vietnam, that had to be quite a shocker.
Well, the training was going to Fort Polk, Louisiana, was about as close as we could get to the terrain and the jungle training when we got to Vietnam. So that kind of prepared us for Vietnam. It prepared me for Vietnam by going to Fort Polk, Louisiana. So I got to able to adjust to that type of living.
And what was your first impression when you stepped off the plane in Vietnam when you first got there?
I'm asking myself, how did I get here? Why was I didn't even know why I was even there,
right?
In the first place. But because the government says
it's not like you were there by choice.
So I was there, and I tried to make the best of it and survive the best that I could.
And how long were you in Vietnam for?
I was there for 1 year.
For 1 year?
Yeah, 1 year tour, and that's all I wanted. 1 year. 1 year was enough for me.
So then you came back to the States in what year? 72?
I came back. Well, I was supposed to come. Unfortunately, I was supposed to come back to the States at Christmas in 71.
71, okay.
And for whatever reason, they had a center where they process us out.
Right.
And they process us out in stages. You go here, and then you stay there for a couple of days. Then they move you to another section to basically, so you had to be clear. Basically, what they were doing was they was checking to see if you was in drugs. Well, I never smoked, never drank, so I didn't know nothing about that.
Right.
But we was in open bays. Everything was open bays. Even at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, everything was basic training. Everything was just open bays. And so I had my luggage. I was prepared to go. I know I didn't have any drugs, but when they came back through, they had the dogs to check, and someone had put some residue in my personal baggage. So I got held over for another 3 days until they could check my system to make sure that I wasn't on drugs. But other than that, I came home in 72 of January.
And where did you come back to?
Went back to my hometown.
Okay.
Uh,
Were you still in the military at that time?
At that time, I was still in the military because I had re-enlisted because we came home. I came home 6 months after I was in Vietnam in '71. I came home the middle of that, and just to get away from that, they give us an R&R, So my R&R, we had a choice either going back home or going to Thailand or Taiwan or some other. So I chose to go back home.
Okay.
For my little R&R, and that's when I went home. And during that time, since I was a church person, met my wife, and I told her that if she would be single when I come back from Vietnam, which I had 6 more months left, I told her that I would marry her. So her and I corresponded. We wrote letters. She was about the only one that sent us letters. All our letters, I could write as many letters as I want to because we didn't need postage. All we had to do is write the word free up in the right-hand corner where you put the stamp.
Really?
That's all we had to do, just put free.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was our made. We just mailed them out. We just put free on it and write as many letters as we wanted to write.
Yeah, it has to be hard back in that day when you're writing because you probably don't hear from somebody for two weeks, 3, even a month or longer.
They'd have mail calls, so mail call was a thing that most of us look forward to. Yeah, but that was it.
Nowadays, you're at least able to call home, and
exactly.
You weren't able to do that back then. They didn't have that technology available.
It was not available. But so then I met her. Then I went back
to Vietnam.
No, after I came back from Vietnam, after I met her, about I think it was June of '70.
Okay.
When I met her, and then we corresponded. So then when I got back home well, it's supposed to have been December. In January, I planned my date to get married. So I planned a marriage date, and I said we went for the 10th, but then we wound up going on the 11th of January. And thank God today here we just celebrated our January of this year. We just celebrated 51 years together.
Wow, congratulations.
So that was a blessing.
That's awesome.
I believe that God was in the whole plan of me being in Vietnam. But the thing that really got me was, before I left and before I got drafted, I was an entrepreneur. Even at 8, 9, 10 years old. I used to sell grit papers, seeds, Christmas cards.
Yep.
I used to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
So when I think about 11th grade or the 12th grade, before I got ready to graduate in school, I used to manage they had a little community store, and I was sort of like the manager of that little community store. So that's some of the things that I did.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So now you're in the military and you're married, right?
Now I'm in the military and got married in '71.
So then what happens? Where do you go?
Then from there, they sent me from Vietnam. Basically, my next duty station was at Fort Hood, Texas.
Fort Hood, okay.
So they sent me to Fort Hood, Texas, and that, like I say, my wife and I, we got married. We went back to Fort Hood, Texas in 72. And then we were stationed at Fort Hood, Texas. And then from Fort Hood, Texas, I stayed there for, I think, 2 years. Then in 76, they sent me, 75 or 76, somewhere between there. They sent me to Fort Gordon.
Wow.
So by that time, I had already re-enlisted to get my MOS changed because I didn't want to be combat arm all my rest of my military duties. So I changed and re-enlisted.
You changed your MOS
changed
to
my
what?
MOS to logistics.
Okay.
So I was in supply.
Okay.
And then from there, they sent me to Fort Gordon, and I stayed there. And then from 76, they sent me over to Germany. So I had 3 years in Germany. I started out with an unaccompanied tour, which was been only 18 months. But I thought about it. I said, no, I'm bringing my wife. And at that time, we had 3 children. I said, no, I'm going to send for my wife.
You had 3 kids by then, huh?
By that time, yes.
Wow.
So
you didn't waste time, huh?
I don't know what it's about. But anyway, it happened. So she.
You know what I find amazing is that when you are sharing your story is that when you get married, when you're a soldier, especially combat situation, you're only responsible for yourself. You don't have to worry about yourself.
Correct.
But once you get married, and then your spouse travels with you to these different deployments and stuff,
Exactly.
you got more responsibilities.
A whole lot of
Right?
responsibility.
And then
Yes,
when
sir.
you have kids, it's
And
even more.
It's even more, right? So we stayed there for the 3 years, and then from the 3 years after that, because when I asked for an accompanied tour, the paperwork went through Fort Gordon.
Okay.
But when it got to Germany, at that time I'm stationed in Mannheim, Germany.
So you went from Fort Gordon to Mannheim.
From Mannheim, Germany.
Okay.
But then to get my wife over, they had to resubmit the paperwork because the paperwork was outdated.
Oh, so she didn't get to go with you at the same time then?
No, she
Okay.
she came over. She came over 9 months later. But
Wow.
after I submitted the paperwork, and they had to say, well, we got to resubmit it. So what they did was they resubmitted it through Fort Huachuca, because Fort Huachuca and Fort Gordon were two communication companies units or bases. At this time, it was the 11th Signal. So yeah, they sent the paperwork to approve it, and once they approved it, then I brought my wife over, and we stayed there to February of '79. Then I got stationed here at Fort Huachuca.
So
in
what was it
1979.
like when you're raising a family in the States, then you get deployed to Germany, and now you're learning the German
Exactly.
economy and the German money and the German food and all that good stuff?
Well, I stayed on base. Well, when I first got there, because the housing was very limited to us
Okay.
that had dependents, and we had got on what they call a housing list. So we lived on the economy for some months. So I don't know how many months, but we lived on the economy for months until there was housing available on Gal Housing Concern. And once they got on, that was the name of the place that we lived at, called
Okay.
Gal Housing Concern. So once we got on that, then everything was basically, I worked on the base, and we did, it had the commissary, the PX. So I didn't have to do a lot of intermingling with the locals.
With
or
the German
nationals there in
citizens
Germany.
there.
Yeah, so everything was just self-contained. And so we just stayed that way for those 3 years.
Did you and your family get to do any sightseeing? Get to take any sightseeing when you were in Germany?
Because I was what they called an essential,
Essential employee or
I was essential NCO, I couldn't go to a lot of the stuff that they had. Because I was
Wow.
essential. I had to
Right.
basically stay there. Like, I was there. But I do remember us taking a trip to Berchtesgaden, Germany. Berchtesgaden.
What's there?
It's like a resort area.
Okay.
It's more like for Christians. It was
Okay.
a Christian resort. So I took my family there. And that was the
Wow.
only thing I was able to do.
And how old were your kids at that time?
Let's see, the oldest one, I think the oldest daughter was, she was born in 69, 70, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76. So the oldest daughter was probably 6 or 7.
Okay.
And then I had another daughter 3 years after her, 60. So she was 3, and then I had another son that was 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that all the children that you have?
No, well, that's all that I brought from Germany, and one
Okay.
was born in Germany in '78. So we brought her back with us when we got here.
So now you're up to four.
So now we up to 4. So now we got 2 girls and 1 boy, and then another. Okay, so now I got down to about probably about 81.
Okay.
And of course, I had 11 years of active duty, so I had 11 active duty years, and I decided I can't deal with this. Things just wasn't going quite the way I kind of expected the military to go. So what I did is I joined the reserves.
Okay.
So I got out, there was no break in service. I went from active duty 81 and straight into the reserves, and I got stationed with a unit here in Fort Huachuca, which has been deactivated. It was called 8th of the 40th Armor Battalion. So now,
Used to be in Douglas,
yeah,
didn't it?
They had
It was
an
a tank, wasn't it?
Yeah, they had an attachment in Douglas,
Okay.
which was attached to us on Fort Huachuca.
Gotcha. Okay.
So now I'm a tank. And the only way I could get that was to get promoted. I had to follow where the MOSs and to make the rank. So I had to follow that, even
Right.
though I was supply. Well, yeah, they didn't need no supply sergeant because they already had one. So so I had to sign up as a tank gunner. So here I am out there not driving them M18. I can't remember. They were changing over to the Abram tanks at that time.
Right.
And so I joined the reserves, and I stayed there. And then to get promoted, I had to be stationed or attached to a unit up in Phoenix. So now I'm going from Fort Huachuca, commuting back and forth to
Wow.
Phoenix, so I can get promoted. So I'm going to weekend warrior, what they used to call us.
Yeah.
And I'm working the weekend.
See, I remember the tanks used to come up
Yeah.
from Douglas. They used to go out to the range and
That's right.
and practice. And I can't remember what year this was, but if you're like coming off post,
Mhm.
they'd have you stopped at the main gate because the tanks would be coming in. They had a trail that they used to
That's right, tank trail.
that they used to take. Yeah,
That'd
I remember
probably-
those days.
That was probably me out there stirring around. So and then in '81 we had another son. So from '81 to speed it up, '81, '82,
Uh-huh.
'83, and '84. We have four boys all back to back.
Wow. So how many children do you have total?
So total now I have a total of 9.
Wow.
6 boys and 3 girls. They all
All healthy,
they all are healthy.
wealthy, and wise.
And one of my main goals was, because during my time coming up in school and education, it wasn't pushed, but because I wanted to be an English teacher before I got drafted.
Right.
Before I got in the military, I wanted to be an English teacher. So that was my goal, that everyone would graduate. So out of our 9 children, all 9 of them, they went to Tombstone High School. All 9 of them graduated.
Wow,
All
that's
9 of 'em-
awesome.
All 9 of them have been to college.
That's a great
All
track
9 of 'em-
record.
all 9 of them they have records set at Tombstone High School that no one have ever broke. I got a daughter. She ran, I think, to 200 meters. And this was back then. She just turned 50. No one have broke her record yet.
Wow. I would be proud just having 9 kids.
Well,
And then the fact after that, to get all 9 through high school
High
and
school,
then college, I mean,
college.
wow.
and I let them make their own choice. The choice
Yeah.
that they wanted to be was that.
And isn't it good that they had the opportunities open to them that you probably didn't have
That I
when you were
didn't
a
have.
kid growing up?
Exactly.
And you were able to help be a little bit more
Correct.
supportive, maybe?
Exactly.
Give them a little bit more guidance from when you were a kid. Hey, this
That's
is...
right.
And kids don't like to hear that.
No.
Back in my day, it was this, or
Yeah,
I had
right.
to walk 50 miles to
Uh-huh.
school in
Yeah,
snow.
yeah.
But looking back on it, I bet you your children appreciated that guidance now. If they
Yes,
don't,
they do.
they should.
One thing I must say out to my children, and hopefully one day they'll watch this, they'll see this.
Yeah, give them a
But
shout
they-
out too.
but-
Give
but-
them their names here.
But they do love their dad. The oldest one is Demetria.
Demetria,
The next one is Monica.
Monica.
The next one is James. He's James the third. The
Okay.
next one is Jennifer, and then after Jennifer is Timothy, Christopher, Joseph, Emmanuel, and the last one was Dwayne, which was born in '87. And you know where I was at when he was born?
Here?
No, he was born here, but I was in Boise, Idaho.
What were you doing in Boise?
We were training for the new Abram tanks. I was the first sergeant up there. I had to be the acting first sergeant. So I was there when they called me and told me that my son, that I had a son
Right.
that was born in there. But to back up just a little bit, in '81, when I got out of active duty and transitioned over to reserve, well, I had to have a job. All I knew was supply.
Okay.
And on Fort Huachuca, as an opening came up, and I worked there for about 30 plus years at Fort Huachuca Accommodation Schools. The school
Wow.
I worked was Johnston Elementary School. They have 3 schools on the base.
Yes, they.
So they hired me in '81 and I stayed there until 2008. Then I retired, and because they couldn't find no replacements for me, I worked another 6 to 7 years subbing because they had no one to sub in the school system. So I gave the elementary schools. So I got retirement from the Army, retirement from the school,
From the state of
and of course
Arizona?
from the state of Arizona.
Yeah.
And now, because I'm 70, going on 73 years old in 4 months, then I'm getting Social Security. So, but I feel like it's a blessing to me.
What are some of the changes that you've noticed in the military recently versus, let's say, when you joined and were sent to Vietnam?
Well,
Well, I know there's a lot of changes, but I'm just saying some that mean something to you.
well, the thing that when I see the soldiers of the day, I'm not against the soldiers of today, but I feel like even the training that they gave me when I come up in the 70s, it was to either break your spirit. The discipline was, it was kind of fine. It wasn't kind of fine. The disciplinary plan that they have for soldiers of the day was totally different than the disciplinary that we had back then in the 70s.
Well, back in the 70s, they could go, the drill sergeants, well, like you said, getting you prepared. They use live fire, right?
Exactly.
They could go hands on pretty much, and if somebody needed a kick in the ass, they got a kick in the ass.
They got kicked.
Can't do that now. Can't do that. Even when I joined, you couldn't do that.
I stayed in what they call, I don't know if some of you all that watch this video can relate to this, especially if you're military. But I stayed in what they call the dying cockroach position. And that's where they would put you on your back, your hands up in the air and your feet up in the air, and you stayed there until you either admitted that you did wrong or they did wrong. And they were always wrong. I'm sorry, but they were always wrong. And I was always in the right. So I stayed in that position.
Wow.
Simply because we didn't hear the instructions, or I wasn't being rebellious, but I was just probably too honest and too truthful. And I admitted if you were wrong, you were just wrong. No matter whether you were the general or the whoever.
Have you had a chance to go visit the Vietnam Wall Memorial?
No, I haven't. I would have liked to have gone.
Is that on your bucket list?
Well, right now at my age and with all the ailments and the sicknesses and all the other stuff, I'm kind of limited to my traveling. But I would like to go. Yes, I would like to go to Washington, D.C. I would like to see some of the stuff. I would like to meet some of my old comrades that I served with in Vietnam. I just don't know how to contact them. I'm not good on, internet and all this other stuff and records. I don't have a whole lot of stuff about that. But
have you talked with Bill Beecher of the BVA, Vietnam Veterans?
No, I haven't.
Have you? Oh, so you haven't even met him?
I don't think so.
No. Oh.
But
we'll have to get you hooked up with them.
But one thing I would like to say in my endeavors in Vietnam, I remember I'm just going to say this, there was a few encounters to where the enemy was coming our way, and we had surrounded, we had about 3 or 4 units out there, companies out there, and we done surround them, and we getting ready to go into combat. But for whatever reason, the Viet Cong, they just disappeared. And that's when I learned then that they dug tunnels on the ground.
Right.
And they wanted me to be a tunnel rat. I said, no, I'm not going to stick my head in a hole that I don't know what's in there. So that was one incident. But one incident that reminds me that I'm grateful today to be alive is because the unit that I was with, they would rotate us back to garrison.
Right.
So we'd go back and change up, take showers, and just a little R&R from the field duty. And this particular time, I was on my rotation back to garrison, and it's one of the most touching moments of my tour in Vietnam is that I went back to garrison. I went back to the base and everything, and then I come to find out a few days later that the unit that I had just left had got wiped out.
Oh, wow.
Yep. the whole unit, that whole platoon.
That's an
They
oh
all
wow.
got wiped
That's
out.
why I said oh wow. That's just
Yeah, they all got wiped. I was the only one that was spared because I was back at Garrison, and that's one thing that I always, and I have always been, and I always thank God, and I'm grateful to God for His angels protecting me in Vietnam, doing that, because I could have
Amen.
today I wouldn't be here talking to you
Amen.
had
to
I
that.
been out there with them. So that's one moment that I will always be grateful and thankful for in my military career.
As a Christian, I've learned, especially as I've gotten older, you don't question God and why He does
Nope.
what He does.
You
You
don't.
just thank Him and be thankful and
Exactly.
yeah, that's wow.
So that's one of my moments that I will never forget in my life.
So you had said that you're retired. You get retirement from the military.
Yep.
So how does that work that you were able to serve? You said a total of 11 years
Now,
active duty, and
11
then
years,
you reserve
and then
duty.
I served 15 years of reserve duty,
Okay.
and I had to wait till I turned 60 before I could get paid. So the way
Oh, so
the
you
way
have to hit 60.
So
Okay.
you get 60. When you turn 60, then you can start getting your retirement. But during that time, it was based on points. So I had 11 years active duty points. So that's 365 days, and whatever that equates to. And then plus the number of points that I got from 81 up until 95, then it made me eligible to receive just as much as a person that have stayed the whole 24 years.
I could never understand
Yeah.
how the math works on that because math is not one of my strong points. Just like the VA,
Right.
when they come out with their VA disability,
Right.
you could have disabilities totaling 250%,
Right.
but you only get paid like 80%.
Right.
Uh,
I'm still dealing with that too.
So tell us, when you mentioned that, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit, I'm guessing that while you were in Vietnam, you were exposed to Agent Orange then?
Yes, and I didn't keep really. After I got into the reserve side, left the active duty and got into the reserve. I would hear about Agent Orange, and I said, "Well, I was over there, and I was boots on the ground," is the term
Right.
that they would use. Boots. I was boots on the ground. I slept in the jungle. I ate in the jungle, and we lived in the jungle, and we threw hand grenades in water to catch fish in the jungle. So yeah, but I was noticing that my health I was losing weight. And this was probably about 5 years ago. I was losing weight. I was working in the school system, and I was getting tired, and I was losing weight, and I had no idea what was going on. So I said, well, I'll go to the VA because the VA had been my medical support ever since I got out of active duty in 81. Everything that deals with me has always been through the VA. So they run a test and say, yes, you do have Agent Orange prostate cancer. And at that time, they diagnosed me with the cancer. At that time, they gave me 100% for a year. They paid me 100% for the year. I had to go get radiation treatment.
Wow.
For 2 months. Got the radiation treatment, and I'm having all these other side effects that have come from that. And right now I'm in the process of trying to, they dropped me from 100, dropped me back down to about 20%. So I'm asking myself.
Right now you're only at 20%?
They dropped me back down, and I'm still having issues. And I know that the problems that I'm having, it has to have come from the Agent Orange. But
and have you been in to file a claim with the DAV or any of the service officers?
No, not yet. That's what I'm working on now.
Yeah, you need to get
Yeah.
in and see us because there's, especially since August of last year when the PACT Act passed.
Right. Okay, that's
now everything has really opened the doors for our Vietnam veterans and our veterans that were in Afghanistan and Iraq. They're exposed. They even redid the 526EZ is the form that you fill out for the claim for disability, and on there they even have toxic exposure questions now.
Okay, well.
So yes, and I would behoove you to do that today. Well, they're not open today, depending on where you go. But I know the DAV is open Monday through Thursday from noon to 4 to do claims.
Right.
And then there are other service groups. I know the American Legion has a service officer. I'm not sure about the VFW, but you could call them and check. But I would start with the DAV just to get the process rolling, get the paperwork done, and get you taken care of, because you served, you were boots on the ground in Vietnam, you were exposed, and these are benefits that you're entitled to.
Exactly.
Benefits that you earned, and you need to not delay.
Yeah, the thing.
Time is of the essence.
And the thing that, and I guess I'm a little naive when it comes to our military and disabilities and all this other stuff. But I just feel like, and this is my own belief, and I'm sure a lot of the comrades that are out there and those that are listening will agree with me, that I shouldn't have to fight for this stuff. They know that I was boots on the ground.
Correct.
They know that I was exposed to. Why do I got to go through this, and this? I was at 100%, but then they dropped me down. So why do I have to continue to fight, pay lawyers, pay people, and all this other stuff to get something that I'm entitled to?
Well, my advice would be not to pay lawyers, first off, would be to go down to the DAV, and I personally would be more than happy to help you. Starting next week, I'm moving to Tuesdays, and I'll be doing Tuesdays now, so just come down. I always like to tell people get there at noon to get signed in, so that you don't have to wait long, because sometimes it gets pretty busy down there, and the waits could be quite long.
But other than that, that Mike, the military has been good to me.
Good.
I have nothing negative to say to the military. And those of you that had those bad experiences with the military, my empathy goes out for that. Some of us have disabilities that either 100% is really not good enough, but nevertheless, we take what is offered and what is given to us. It's not about the money, but it's just about as long as they take me
getting treated too,
and getting treated without paying an arm and a leg and a kidney just to get treated for something that was caused by something. And like I say, I was drafted. I didn't volunteer for Vietnam.
Right. Your country told you were going, you went.
Exactly. So I feel like our country and our government, whoever, owes this to us that are Vietnam veterans that are still alive, walking above the ground. Because many of them are not on.
I can tell you, Vietnam veterans fought for many, many, many years to get Agent Orange claims.
Right.
I remember when I used to go to the VA in the early 80s, they would have signs all over the place for VA for Agent Orange exposure, because they were doing a lot of testing, and they were doing a lot of intake for our veterans, even that far. But it took them forever to get around and start saying, yes, this is due to Agent Orange. Yes, this is due to Agent. And now, like I said, with the PACT Act, and then you have burn pits that have qualified now. So yes, I would highly encourage not only yourself, but any veteran that has served in our military that feels that they've been exposed to a toxic exposure.
Right.
And it's not that hard to prove, because all you got to do is on your DD 214, which amazes me, the lack of information that goes on a DD Form 214.
I know.
There was one service member I was helping, his DD Form 214 didn't show anything about Vietnam, but he was awarded the Vietnam Service Medal. So you don't get the Vietnam Service Medal if you haven't been in Vietnam. So.
But I don't know. I don't know how true this is, Mike. But I'll say this: a lot of them got service medals, especially, and I found this out later on. But a lot of the personnel clerks, they awarded themselves these medals, even though they weren't actually
there
on boots on the ground.
Wow.
So, but nevertheless, so that's how some of them got them. Like for instance, my combat arms, and even today I don't know how to do it. And I'm not really concerned about it, But I have had a hard time for them to award me my combat infantry badge
Really?
with the rifle, the blue and the rifle.
Yeah, yeah.
They can't find, they don't have it on record. And I don't know how to pursue it. Not that I want it. It doesn't matter to me now. I mean, I'm
It
73
should matter.
years old. I'm 73 years old, so having a combat infantry badge, I know I was in combat. I
Right.
know I was boots on the
Right.
ground, and they just don't have it on my record.
But
so
that's
I
your
could not
history,
wear
though.
it.
That's your history, though.
Exactly.
You know, and that's important, and it should be there. And if not, did you ever write back to the record section back in St. Louis
No, I didn't.
to get a copy of your personnel file?
No, I
No?
never did. I never did that. Matter of fact, I was just so elated, I guess, so happy to
Right.
be able to serve the military, work toward what I was working toward. I didn't plan it like that. Everything that happened to me, I'm this type of person. I believe that my life and my life was directed, and everything that I have accomplished, that it was somewhere in the plan of God. So I just accepted that, this is the way it is. But try to pursue stuff, I just wasn't that type of person.
So now that you've shared with us that you're retired from the military, you're retired from the public school district, what is some of your hobbies that you do right now? Do you have any that you want to share?
This is not a hobby, but this is not what I consider a hobby, but
Okay.
it's my lifestyle.
Okay.
I'm a believer in God. I guess you call it, if you want to call me a Christian, born again believer, whatever. I'm a faith person. And
Preach
that's what
to us. There you go.
That's what I do. I believe in God. I believe in the Bible. I believe in
Yep.
His Word. I believe what it says. Not only do I say it, but I live it.
You live it,
I
right?
live what I say. If it says do this, I believe in doing that. And I believe in reaching out to help others so that they can also become believers, faith, walk by faith, promise keepers or whatever, born again. All this type of stuff is out there. But my faith and my trust is in the Almighty God and His Son, Jesus Christ.
Amen to that. And do you have any activities based around that? Any faith-based activities that you guys do, like food drives or?
At one time, during the COVID, our church would issue food out. I guess I'm a social worker now
Okay.
because I'm always reaching out. I love people in general, and it don't matter who they are. I just love people, and I guess I got a big heart. Of course, I get hurt.
Right.
Because a lot of them hurt, I've learned something, and I never thought when I would say this, love hurts. Not so much as those that you're related to, but those that you are not related to. Because I'm a people person. I just love people. I don't like to see people be the underdog because I was the underdog. As a young boy, I was always bullied. As a young boy, I told you
Right.
when I was an entrepreneur, I would always have money, even back in the 50s. I would have a little bit of money. It wasn't a whole lot. And I would be bullied, and they would take it from me. There's 5 in my family. And I'm the oldest. So, but they would always do that. So basically, my heart from that experience have me to look out and reach out to people. So when I see people, all I see is people. I don't see nothing else. Whether you male, whether you female, whether you young, whether you old, I just love reaching out to people. So we do reach out to that. I do a lot of social work. I help people in the community. I have a sister-in-law that is a vulnerable person, and we brought her out here. She was in Georgia too. She's my wife's sister, and we brought her here, and I've been taking care of her. My sister, then I brought one of my sisters out here. I took care of her to her demise. And then she had a friend, which is a Korean woman, didn't have no family at all. I took her under my wing and made sure that she was taken care of. Her. I got her, right now it's not stationed, but she's up in assisted living up in Tucson.
Okay.
We the only family that she got.
Wow.
And I've just had all kind of experience of working with people and helping people get through. And I'm constantly just giving and giving and giving.
That's great.
That's just. So by me being a giver,
Yeah.
That's
And I think
That's
that's
part of
why
my
God.
social life.
I think that's why God spared you, because He had more powerful things in
I,
mind for you down the road. I know that for a fact.
I see that. Well, when I look back over my life,
Yeah.
I see that now.
You know, it's like you said earlier, and it's spot on. It's one thing to read it or pray it, but it's another thing to live it. And living it is the hardest thing to do, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's the hardest thing to do.
It's not no easy life, especially you have to you have to forgive those that abuse you and persecute you. I mean, you have to do all that, as a Christ-like person. So,
Right.
but God give me the strength to do it.
And then when you talk about being hurt or having your heart hurt,
Right.
not by family but by what a thing that adds that is I quit watching things like Fox News and CNN and headline and MSNBC because it hurt to watch it. To hear all this stuff going on. And I do a lot of social media, and especially in our county, I see all of these people crying out for help, and my first instinct is to want to help them. But I'm not a millionaire. I don't have it. Yeah, I don't have that kind of money. But you always try to give advice or try to, because most people don't want to hand out.
No.
They want to. What's the saying? They don't want to hand out. They want to hand up. Right? Just to get on their feet, and that's one thing that I really admire and love about the Warrior Healing Center. Is their main thing is combating veteran suicide, which is a huge issue in this country. But when a veteran walks in through the door, they don't see that person as an officer or whatever their rank is. That's left outside.
Exactly.
They're treated as an individual.
As a person.
How can we help you? What assistance do you need here? Sit down, do an intake form, let us get to know a little bit about you. These are the resources we have. So I love, and that's why I love volunteering here. And that's why I'm so passionate about the Warrior Healing Center, because they do so many good things for our veterans here in Cochise County. And
I'm sure that service is appreciated.
I hope so, because I know I appreciate it.
I know I appreciate it, because like I said, when I came back from Vietnam, they treated us about baby killers, and they treated us so bad. So that's the reason why I stayed. That's the reason why I just stayed in the military. Why go back to a community where you're gonna be blackballed as this, that, and the other stuff, and they don't want to give you nothing. And some people during my time, when we came back, if they hired a veteran, that company would get so much money from the government to hire veterans or whatever. But that wasn't going to be my case, not where I came from. So I just stayed in the military.
I want to be something that helps the greater good.
Right.
I don't want to. I look back on some of my previous social media posts where I would post like some political stuff, and I thought to myself, Michael, what are you doing?
Right.
Set that crap aside. You can't let that. It's too divisive in our nation right now.
It is.
Even today, and I think we just need to set all that crap aside. Pray to God. Do whatever it is to get your mind set in the right spot where you want to help other people and not be so judgmental. Oh my Lord, it's.
I mean, I don't even.
Do you do any volunteering around?
No. You know what? No volunteering. Like I say, I mostly just social work stuff. I just wherever help is needed, my hands is in the mix. Whether it's related to the church or whether it's related to whatever, my hands is just in there.
Travis, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your comment there for James. Thank you for sharing your amazing story. Another great interview. These are why I love doing these interviews.
Right.
It's because I told you off camera, you get to share your story. Cochise County gets to know a little bit about who James Thomas is, and the service to our country, it's just a phenomenal story that you shared with us. And these stories are important. That's why I like to sit down here every Friday and have these discussions.
Right.
It's not about me, it's about the veteran that I'm interviewing.
Exactly.
It's their story, and it's an important story to tell.
Correct.
And I love telling each story because I've done, I think you're like 81 or 82nd interview that I've done.
Okay.
And out of those 82 interviews, not one single veteran has had the exact same experience
No,
in their career, and they won't.
And they won't.
Nope.
Exactly. He sure will not.
And I could sit here probably and talk to you for another, I don't know, hour or so about the spiritual side of life, because I love talking about the Holy Spirit and all that.
Oh, yes.
So Beverly said here, great interview, and I served with him. Is that good or bad thing to hear?
Well,
Tell us.
I was the NCO.
Uh-huh.
So I outranked her, so I guess it was good. Man, I'd been good on her part because I was NCO and I had to do what if the NCO said jump, she had to jump.
And
if the NCO said don't do this, she had to follow protocol. Otherwise, I would point to myself. I said, "You see these stripes here?" I said, "You don't have to respect me, but you will respect my stripes."
Yeah.
Yes, I didn't use that too much because I was the type of NCO that I led by example.
And you must have done a great job because Beverly does a lot of good work here at the Warrior Healing Center.
So if most of the soldiers, most of our military leaders today, if they can lead their soldiers by example, our military would be the greatest in this world. But they have to lead by example.
My mom used to put something in my head when I was younger. So when Teresa here, she interviewed me, I forget what it was for, but we were talking and I said, actions speak louder than words.
And words. Yes,
right? I mean, you can sit there and you can talk a good game. Oh, I like to do this for people. Oh, I like to do that for people, right? But that's not where it's at.
Nope.
It's not about the talk. It's about actually doing the work.
The work.
Mm-hmm. So
Talk the talk. You talk, then walk.
Yep.
Don't just walk and don't talk. They both go together.
So do you have any closing words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, I don't really. I think I probably basically said it all. But I look at my life now because I didn't expect, especially after going to Vietnam, I didn't really expect to come back to America. I figured I'd probably been killed over there. But fortunately, the God that I serve, He have allowed me to at least in 4 more months, I'll be 73. So He allowed me to see that, and I truly count it a blessing. Those of you that are veterans, whether you're from the Vietnam era, whether you're from the Kuwait, Desert Storm, whatever, if you served in the military, we do have we have served faithfully for our country. And if you're listening to me this morning, listen to Mike and myself this morning, or whenever you listen to us, it's a blessing, amen, to be in a country where we can worship God without being restrained and without being this, that, and the other. Yes, I believe persecution will come upon us as Christians, because the Bible speaks of those times.
It happens all the time overseas too,
And we just don't know about it happening overseas, but it happens to them. It hadn't gotten to America, but whatever. I'm looking for the soon coming King, Jesus Christ. And that's what I built my hope on, is that I'll see His face one day.
I love talking to spiritual people. I do. It's like a kindred spirit,
Yes.
when it's so uplifting, and it's just
like kindred brother.
it's got me all good inside. Feel like the Holy Spirit's working right now.
Well,
right?
His spirit is moving.
So also I want to encourage our audience, last week I did an interview with Bill Beecher from the Vietnam Veterans of America, and what was interesting is that I had interviewed Bill uh, almost 2 years ago, and I would encourage you to see the video if you haven't. I'll share it to you if you do Facebook. We'll talk about that off camera. But what's very interesting with this interview is I asked him questions about his service in Vietnam. And we talked about the Vietnam Wall. We talked about what it was like coming home from Vietnam and how they were treated today, back then, versus how our 9/11 era military have come home to a heartfelt,
Right.
So there's just so many interesting things. So if you do get a chance to watch that article or watch that interview from last week with Bill Beecher,
Okay.
I'd encourage you to do it, being that you were in Vietnam.
Right.
I think you'd really enjoy it. So
Okay.
I do have a few quick announcements here I want to read real fast before we end today's show. So today is Good Friday, which means that today is the day that Christ was crucified on the cross. And then on Easter is when he rises. And so today, like it's Good Friday. Today, starting at 11 o'clock and going to 1400, we're going to have the Warrior Healing Center Fun Food Friday. I love the Fun Food Friday. They do this the first Friday of every month. Not sure what the menu is going to be, so come on in and be surprised like I am.
I think it's spaghetti.
Tomorrow, starting at 1700, going to 1900 hours, the DAB Fry, Chapter 14, is having their monthly chicken fried steak dinner, and that's going to be taking place at the VFW Post 9972. That's here in Sierra Vista. Friday is also, they're having the American Legion Open Mic Jam. That's going to be at the American Legion Post 16 in Bisbee. And that starts at 1900 hours. It goes to 2100 hours. Tomorrow, we're having the Velo Vets Sierra Vista group ride. That will start tomorrow at 0830. And they meet at the Pueblo del Sol Golf Course parking lot. Also tomorrow, starting at 0900, going to 1000 hours, is the VVA monthly meeting, possibly at the VFW. I'm guessing that's what the question mark means. Saturday, starting at 10 o'clock, going to 11 o'clock, is the WACVA-AWU San Pedro chapter meeting. And that takes place at the Sierra Vista United Methodist Church. On Saturday, 1100 to 1400 hours, is the Military Brothers Moving LLC Open House / Small Business Get to Know Our Neighbors community event. That will be taking place in Huachuca City. I should have asked Kathy. I don't know what MBM is. I should have asked about that. For more information on the Military Brothers, well, MBM, that would be their facility.
Military.
Ding, 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 right?
You just said it. That's it. Military brother moving.
Tomorrow also, starting at 1300, going to 1600 hours, we have the team RWB watching bull riding in Tombstone. And Sunday is Happy Easter, when Christ is risen. And next Tuesday, starting April 11th, starting at 10 o'clock, going to 11:30, Vet Center, Vietnam Veteran Recovery and Support Group. That takes place here at the main conference room at the Warrior Healing Center. And last but definitely not least is the Veteran-Owned Business Touch Base meeting that starts Tuesday, April 11th, starting at 17:30, going to 1900 hours here at the Warrior Healing Center main conference room. So those are all of the events there's so much more that goes on. These are just some of the ones that we highlighted. If you would like a copy of the events, you can get them on social media at the Facebook page. Just look up Warrior Healing Center, go to their page, and you should be able to see all of the events Kathy is really good about getting those posted every week. Also, I run a group called the Cochise County Veterans AZ group, and we also post all of the events in there. The group that I started is up to 275 members, I think, right now. The purpose of that group is to get veterans in our area together on Facebook and let them know what's going on, health benefits that may be affecting you, or claim benefits that could be affecting you. Anything that affects veterans that live here in Cochise County, Arizona, we talk about them in this group. So it's Cochise County AZ Veterans Group. So James, thank you again so much for coming in and sitting down and talking with us. Next Friday, my special guest veteran I have lined up to interview is Bill Bates. Bill is a veteran. I know Bill from the Knights of Columbus, and I know him from the DAV. So he will be my interview next Friday. Thank you, everybody. Good Friday. Happy Easter's coming this weekend. God bless you all. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Blessed this weekend.